Let's talk about the Joint Commission and the role a Joint Commission plays in reviewing a hospital's performance.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunter.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bork. Good afternoon, Mr. Hunter.
I thought you said you didn't have a report.
I don't know, sir. You're not
listening.
Perhaps I'm not being clear today. I do not have access to the 2018 report.
That sound was Hunter's soul leaving his body.
I thought I buried this Dracula several years ago.
But you have an opinion to a reasonable management probability that the failure of the medical executive committee to address this caused or contributed to the harm of Mike Kowalski.
Objections beyond the scope.
You can answer.
Thank you. I do believe that this failure on the part of the governing body contributed.
And this particular individual happens to also be remarkably charismatic and have phenomenal hair to combine with my, I guess, phenomenal beard.
Et tu, Rob? You're going to jump on the good hair stuff too? Really?
Dude, why not? I mean, I can't keep this thing in order.
Thank you for that. And speaking of looking fabulous, coming to the program right now, Dr. Joe Corcoran, who we have also labeled here as Dr. Good Hair. How are you?
I'm great. Can you? Hey, good evening. Good evening from a fantastic, beautiful, cloudless day here on the west coast of Florida. Thank you so much for joining us, advocates. And hey, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who joined us for the members only live streams on Friday. We had a pretty good crowd in the morning and had an even bigger crowd in the afternoon. Had some great conversations. We're inching towards that goal of making them truly interactive, and we're working to make it even more interactive for the June calls. But thank you for joining. And before I go any further at all, a thank you to everyone who joined me in wishing our graphics goddess Sally a very happy birthday. She did share some photographs with me today. She got some plenty of cards, plenty of gifts, and a fabulous looking homemade cake that her husband made for her. So I know that she was feeling the love in the house and across the advocate universe. So thank you for joining in making her feel the love. So I want to get right to the big part of tonight's presentation, and that is I previewed it a little while in a call not too terribly long ago. I want to say a week or so ago, about a mom here in Florida who discovered the difficulties that can be presented by DCF. And so I want to bring to you now a new mom, Jessie. Welcome to the Dr. Joe, Dr. Good Hair YouTube stream. But congratulations to you and your husband, and tell us, how's motherhood and how's your adorable little girl?
Thank you, Dr. Joe. First of all, I want to thank you so much for, having me on the show today and providing me with a platform to tell my story. If I could scream it from the rooftops, I would. So I'm just very grateful to be here. Motherhood so far is more than I ever could have imagined. There's definitely a learning curve to it. It's our first one, but we're just smitten over here. She's the perfect little baby. I'm so lucky. And even through all of what's happened, I look at her and I'm like, I'm so lucky. So yeah, we're very excited over here. Very busy, very sleep deprived, but very excited.
Wow, you sound exactly like a new parent.
So then I'm doing it right. That's good.
Yeah. Hey, well, Jesse, I will tell you, Screaming from the Mountaintops probably was pretty effective in its day.
Yeah.
This platform actually gives you a much broader audience. And I've already seen logins from the Netherlands, from Canada, and I'm happy to see that one of our newer members, Arizona DCS Oversight Group, is in the audience. When you and I spoke earlier, I was talking about her and the work that she does on behalf of families that have run into unfortunate situations like you're experiencing. But she does that for our friends in the West, particularly in the state of Arizona. Well, let's just cut to the chase. I was really gobsmacked when I heard what you went through. I mean, listen, I've been very blessed. I was an obstetrician gynecologist. I practiced for 15 years, more or less, plus or minus. And all in, delivered over 3,000 babies. Right. I will tell you that almost all of those situations were happy occasions. And that's what you went to the hospital expecting. So tell us what went right, but let's get to what didn't go right.
Sure. I chose this particular OBGYN and hospital because this is what they do. They deliver babies. They provide, experiences. They came recommended. We were very, very optimistic that everything was going to go great and it was going to be this beautiful experience. Up until the actual delivery, it was. There was really kind of no cause for concern. There wasn't really any red flags, really. Everything seemed pretty normal. Prior to my pregnancy, I had high blood pressure and I was on one medication. After my first appointment with this OBGYN, we decided to switch to something that's considered a safer medication for pregnant women. And on the medication, I still never really felt like my blood pressure was under control. It still kind of felt a little elevated, more elevated than I felt like it should be. But, we were just kind of told, oh, well, you're pregnant. Your body's working in overtime. That's kind of normal. If it hits these levels, let's then be concerned. Okay. So, I go in on the 26th to be induced, 8:00 in the morning. By 9:30, I had the dosage of Pitocin, get things started. At around, from what I'm told, at around 10:00 in the morning, I was drug tested and failed with a positive fentanyl result. Nobody said anything. We just kept on going with the labor. At 10:00, again, I was drug tested, and again, I failed with a positive fentanyl result. In between those two tests, I had 2 epidurals that had failed on my right side, and my blood pressure had spiked. So we were just straight into the IV. I didn't know that I needed to write down how many servings of the medication I was getting, but it seemed like there was about 4 or 5 doses that I was given of this particular medication. It's labetalol. I don't, if anybody's familiar, that's what it is.
And labetalol, just for the non-medical people, labetalol is a commonly used medication to lower blood pressure. It's a beta blocker. So a lot of people have heard that term. It's a very commonly used blood pressure medicine, and that's what they were using in your case because it's safe for the baby.
Yes.
Okay.
So everything kind of went off without a hitch. They had offered me a 3rd epidural, and at that point I was 13 hours in, only 7 centimeters dilated. And I just felt like I don't really want to do a 3rd epidural and have it fail while I'm pushing. That was my plan, was to push. So at that point I decided, let's call it, let's get her out of there. Let's go ahead with the C-section. We went ahead with the C-section. Everything was normal. After that, they kind of put you in the recovery room, and it's interesting now looking back, you kind of dissect every little piece of what happened in between the beginning to the end. I had just gotten a C-section, so I wasn't quite there. It felt like it was like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
But my husband had said that right after that, while they were cleaning her up and everything, that a doctor had come over with somebody who appeared to be uniformed. We now believe that maybe that was somebody looking at the baby to see, is this, a fentanyl baby? Is the baby okay? Does she look normal? Whatever. But again, nothing was said. Still nothing was said at this point as to what's going on. And they left and they passed the baby off to my husband. She was born at 1:30 in the morning on the 27th. So,
and Jesse, let me and you had been drug tested twice at this point, right?
Yes.
At approximately 10 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then this uniformed person showed up after your daughter was born at 1:30 in the morning?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like right after. Like I went from the C-section room to the little recovery room that they put you in.
Yeah.
Where you do the skin to skin, and they kind of clean the baby all up and everything. And that's when the uniformed person had showed up. But nobody said anything. No conversations were had.
And at any point during your prenatal test, your prenatal care,
Mm-hmm.
and I know the practice that you went to, it's a big statewide and even national now practice. They have very high standards. They have very consistent protocols. They do good work.
Yeah.
Did anyone talk to you about drug testing? Because again, in my experience, having delivered thousands of babies, and as a dad who got to be there for the birth of 2 babies, drug testing was not routine. And maybe it is today. I'm seeing a comment from Arizona DCS that she tells mothers to drug test at home before they come in. So maybe in Arizona, mothers are secretly drug tested here in Arizona. Boy, Arizona, I want to have a conversation with you about that at some point, because that just doesn't seem right. But Jesse, let's not interrupt your story any longer. I just wanted to kind of pull those points out for you. And this was at a hospital, and if I'm not mistaken, it was at a women and children's hospital. So a specialty hospital.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
No, nobody had ever brought up any kind of drug testing. I mean, while I was there, they had a form that I signed, but I mean, I didn't think that they would be drug testing me for no reason, and I had nothing to hide. I'm not on drugs. So I had nothing to hide. I just thought that was standard. This is my first time. Nobody was really explaining anything, and I don't know what's normal and abnormal in that realm. This is the first baby I've ever had. I thought that's just something they did. They drug tested you just for the safety of everybody, and I had nothing to hide. So sure, I mean, drug test me, that's fine. Take a kidney, whatever it is, that's normal. Okay. So that was on the 27th. Nobody said anything. On the 28th, I'm taking a nap. I wake up to my cousin and my aunt in my room to see the baby. My husband's there showing the baby off, just, proud new first time dad. He's got a little dad hat on. He's just super jazzed, as am I. We're just over the moon.
Sure.
And all of a sudden there's a knock at the door, and a woman comes in, announces that she's with DCF and that everybody needs to leave the room. She needs to talk to me privately. So I'm like, okay, well, again, I don't know what's normal and abnormal. This is my first time. So I'm like, maybe this is just normal. Maybe they just, I don't know, come in and, give you like a little spiel and, don't hurt the baby and move on, So that is when I'm informed that I've failed a drug test and that it's popped for fentanyl. To which my response is, you have the wrong person. You have the wrong person. I told myself that if I got pregnant, I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that if anything happened, it wasn't because of something I did. I stopped drinking caffeine. I had gestational diabetes. I was testing my sugar 4 times a day. Throughout my pregnancy, I only gained about 15, 20 pounds. To be fair, I was a little overweight to begin with, so there wasn't much weight for me to gain, but just kind of things that verify that I was doing what was needed for me to do to make sure that this baby was perfect. And so I told her, I was like, you have the wrong person. She confirmed that she did not feel as though she had the wrong person.
Yeah.
And she asked me to submit a drug test.
Yeah.
Again, this is DCF. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're scary. And I've seen documentaries. I know what happens when DCF gets involved. It's like the wild, wild west. It doesn't really seem like anybody holds them accountable. It doesn't really seem like they answer to anybody. And it seems like they've got a lot of power. So, when asked to submit a urine sample, I said, sure, yeah, of course. Because again, I have nothing to hide. I haven't done anything wrong. So I go into the bathroom. I'm in a diaper. I'm bleeding, and I'm giving a drug test, which all just seems
surreal,
so outrageous. Like, how did I just go to like being the happiest person probably in the building to this is what I'm doing? Like, this is wild.
Welcome to motherhood, right?
Yeah. So it was a rapid test, which I'm assuming is what hospitals do as well, is a rapid test. And again, it came back with a positive fentanyl, result. But at this point, they had still been pumping me full of labetalol. Like the labetalol never stopped. My blood pressure was still spiked. So I was still getting regular treatments and IVs of labetalol. So I then went out and stood in the hallway. They called my husband in. And again, there he is in his dad hat, not understanding what's going on. They drug tested him. I came back into the room and she asked me, who the other 2 women were. I told her, and she said, well, I want to interview one of them. Which, like, this is my family. Like, this is crazy what's going on here.
Right.
And like also like intrusive and embarrassing and demeaning. And I mean, I could go on and on with the words to describe what this was. I asked her, I was like, is this necessary? And she said, well, unless you want to call somebody, they're here. It would just be easier to go ahead and interview them. So, I mean, okay, yeah, I mean, go ahead and interview them. So she interviewed my cousin. And then at that point, resources have been called. My sister shows up. My mom shows up. The hospital room is filled with people. And DCF starts talking about a safety net plan. So what a safety net plan is now that I've been educated on it, is when you leave the hospital, they either want somebody to move in with you, or they want you and the baby to move in with somebody else so they can pretty much watch you and see how you interact with the baby. To which at that point, when that was brought up, I mean, the room exploded in objections. Everybody it's just so outlandish, the whole idea of it all. So they at the end, she called her supervisor and they decided to back off on that they didn't need a safety plan. But she did come out to the house the next morning, 8:00 in the morning, to look around the house, make sure that we had a bassinet and the home was, suitable for the baby, which, I mean, we've got a bassinet, we've got the diaper changer, we've got an $800 crib that will last her for the next 10 years of her life. She's got a closet all to herself. We've got, I mean, we're prepared. We have been preparing. Our families have been preparing. Everybody has been preparing for this moment.
Yeah.
She tells my husband, okay, well, I'll be back next week once you're home to drug test you and your wife again. So I'm very blessed, and my sister is a salon owner and a hairstylist, and her husband, my brother-in-law, is a financial advisor. So between the two of them, they're super connected with all different types of people.
Sure.
and they referred me to a lawyer. She's not a malpractice lawyer, but she's a lawyer nonetheless. And she suggested a woman who is an expert witness and specializes specifically in cases like this, that we call her and have her come and do her own test, a urine analysis and whatever else. So she came to the hospital on the 29th and did a urine analysis that came up negative. I left the hospital a few days after that. And on May 3rd, I went and got a hair analysis done because I wanted to really drive home the point that this was a mistake and that they couldn't come back with anything else. A hair analysis test goes back 90 days. And they're specifically testing for fentanyl, specifically. I mean, it was a 14-panel test, but the way that they process it is different. It's better than a rapid test. You're not going to get a misread on this one. So, of course, that test as well came back negative. That was on Tuesday that we got those results, this past Tuesday. So we called DCF. We provided the urine analysis test and the hair follicle test. And at that point, she called her supervisor and he said, okay, let's go ahead and work the case and be done with it. Don't go back out there. So they're not coming back out here. It's going to take a few weeks for them to go ahead and close the case. But now it's kind of a question of, this is going to be on our record forever, and it's going to be noted as unfounded, which is great, but it never should have happened in the first place. I don't want to be
unfounded is their term, correct?
That's their term. Yep, unfounded.
Okay. And Gene Sullivan asked a good question. Was your daughter being drug tested at the same time?
So they were trying to drug test her. Every time she would pee, she would poop, and it would contaminate the sample. I was not under the impression that they were drug testing her. I didn't know that's what they were doing. They just said they needed a urine sample. I didn't know it was for drugs because I probably wouldn't have let them do that.
Sure.
I'm the one who finally put a stop to trying to get a urine sample. I didn't like the way that the urine sample was trying to be gotten, if that makes sense. So it's like a little bag that they kind of adhere to their little vagina, and the tape to pull it off just seemed so harsh, and it's so soft and she'd be so upset every time that we'd go to change a diaper because of this tape, this like medical tape that's on her, that finally I called a nurse in and I was like, if we don't have to do the urine analysis, I don't want to anymore. I don't know what it's all about, but I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like how harsh it is in such a sensitive area, and it's upsetting her, which is upsetting me. And they said, okay, no problem. No, we won't do it anymore. So I was like, okay. And at that point, again, still at that point, I didn't know that I had tested positive for fentanyl. Nobody had told me.
They never told you.
No, I found out that I tested positive for fentanyl from DCF when they showed up on the 28th.
Wow.
Nobody had mentioned to me that I had tested positive for fentanyl until then.
Wow.
So, now the issue is that this is a stain on my record that shouldn't be there. It's unfounded, but it should never have even been opened in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had heard the story, and we talked about it a little bit earlier today, about you're on a registry. And
yes, that's
tell me about that.
So that's how it was kind of presented to us. My husband had told DCF, he's like, if it's unfounded, then it's unfounded and the case is closed. And he had said, yeah, but it's something that sticks with you forever. And she was like, well, she didn't really want to answer. And he's like, no, it's something that sticks with you forever. If we ever end up at the emergency room, or possibly even if we go to put her into a school or something like that, they can look back and see that there's been a case that was opened with DCF. And she was like, well, yeah, but it'll be noted as unfounded. But it will be there. Well,
but AZ is asking about the central registry, and you're on it for 25 years. And And, heaven forbid your daughter is an active kid
Mhm.
and falls on the playground and breaks an arm, or like my son fractured his collarbone.
Right.
You've got this bright red flag that says, hey, watch these parents, they're drug addicts, right? Even if it's
Exactly.
unfounded. Who's going to go that far down the page to see that
Right.
it's unfounded? And
Right.
I just, Sally, thank you very much for putting this up. This is an article from the National Institutes of Health.
Mhm.
NIH, for those of you, we have about 30% of our audience comes from outside of the country, Jesse. So I have to kind of, sometimes I try to over explain, but the NIH, the National Institute of Health, is federally receives mostly federal funds and is really kind of the academic think tank
Mhm.
for health in the United States. This article was published by the NIH last year. Does labetalol trigger false positive drug testing results? Objective methods and results is followed by the conclusion, and the conclusion is yes, it does. So I'm sorry that didn't make it onto this, this screenshot of the abstract, but it's recognized by everybody
Mhm.
that labetalol triggers false positive drug testing results, specifically for amphetamine and methamphetamine. It's in the second sentence right here, right? So, so how do we get you off the registry? Because that's going to follow you around, and that's going to cause problems when you're trying to be a good mom
Right.
and get your daughter's fracture. You're right on it. Conclusions. In summary, false positive results can be generated by labetalol when tested by immunoassay, but false positive results are not expected when testing is performed by highly specific analytical approaches. And your lawyer was absolutely brilliant, and I know that AZ agrees. Doing the hair test, that test will show any drug use
Mhm.
over a set period of time. And typically it's about 3 months, 90 days. So
Mhm.
brilliant move. Hooray for you and your attorney.
Mhm.
And thank goodness you connected with an attorney as quickly as you did. But how do we
Mhm.
get you off the registry? That's a challenge that I'm really hoping that this community can help us solve.
Yeah. Me too. And I have to say too, I don't really feel like there was any advocacy for me. My family advocated for me more than anyone and rallied around me. A simple Google search. That's all that was done, was a simple Google search. And it wasn't even directed towards labetalol. It was what medications can cause a false positive for fentanyl. And labetalol is the last thing that's listed. The
Yeah.
doctors don't talk to DCF. DCF doesn't talk to the doctors. And as far as the doctors go, they can't advocate for you because they don't know you. Throughout the 9 months that I was with this practice, and again, I never felt like I was in bad hands. I felt like I was in good hands. This is what they
Yeah.
do. I saw the same doctor maybe twice.
All
The
right.
doctor who delivered my baby, I had never met before. I met her the day before by chance for my pre-op because the doctor that I was scheduled with had an emergency and had to cancel. You see a
Yes.
different doctor every time you go in. So, I mean, I understand why they can't really advocate for you. They don't know you.
Yeah.
But all around, I don't foot the bill as somebody who's addicted to fentanyl. And definitely not addicted to fentanyl to the point where my fix is more important than my child.
Right.
The whole thing is just crazy. It's just crazy. I feel like I'm in
Yeah.
crazy town.
Yeah. So AZ, again, she's the one with all this experience because she does, in fact, advocate for families in Arizona. She
Mhm.
offers two things. Number one, appeal it. You only have a certain time to appeal, and it's got to be done through your attorney. And
Mhm.
then she added this: you'll have to appeal through court to get your name removed. So again, I don't know how familiar your attorney is with the process, but I am offering to you that you have the backing of this community. The comments are overwhelmingly supportive of you, Jesse, and your daughter and your family. And listen, we will offer whatever support we can for you. You need us to do some research, we'll do some research. You need us to, write letters and emails, we can do that too. But this community is so unique, and I never in a million years thought that by stepping up and testifying for the Kowalskis, that my reward was going to be getting to meet these people. They are unbelievable. And listen, on the other side of it, so we will help any way we can in addressing your concern, because you have to get off of that registry, right? But I will also tell you, and Joy brings up a great point. She had heard that labetalol can cause interfere with drug testing. Why don't more, not even the broad category of healthcare workers, why don't more labor and delivery physicians, nurses, the PharmDs that support labor and delivery should know this and should be talking about it, right? Yeah. And fentanyl is such a big topic these days. So what can we do? And this is a rhetorical question, not meant for you to answer, right? What can we do to get the medical establishment to talk about this and not put families who should be celebrating this amazing event? I mean, you went into the hospital as a couple, you came out as a family. Right. But you had in the back of your mind, holy cow, how long are we going to get to hold on to this little girl before somebody in a uniform shows up to take her away from us? And that's unfair. Yeah. Right.
And that's still the fear. I'm still afraid that they're going to come and knock on my door because they can. I was at the doctor today for my follow-up, and I asked him, as I presented my hair follicle test, I asked him, I was like, I understand if you can't answer this, but have you ever had a patient that this has happened to? Obviously, it's a false positive. Has this ever happened? And he said, no. He's like, it's so rare that I've never had it. Now, I've read the case studies that have suggested that this could possibly happen, but I don't think anybody in the practice has ever heard of this actually happening. So, I mean, it's a rare thing, and I guess I'm a medical anomaly, which I've never wanted to be more normal in my life. Yeah. But just because it doesn't happen often, I mean, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be talked about, because this ruined a whole experience. I'm a family photographer. That's what I do. I take pictures of families and babies. Celebrating, right? I had this whole list of photos that I wanted to do in the hospital that I didn't do because I was just so sad about the whole situation. I was stressed. We couldn't get my blood pressure under control. I had to do a magnesium drip, and that's to prevent seizures because your blood pressure is crazy. So it's like, relax, calm down. We need your blood pressure to be better. But also you have this super crazy thing that's happening, and it's too much. It's too much.
Well, I think Gene Sullivan raises a very snarky but smart question. Wow, even sex offender registrars have to be found guilty before they're put on the registry. It sounds unconstitutional. Yeah. So I will tell you that AZ, and I do know her real name, but I don't want to share it in the group. But she is willing to speak with you if she can provide any support, and I will hook you up. I will connect the two of you. And AZ, thank you so much for being so generous with what you know and what you do to help this young lady who is just trying to be a good mom and, just enjoy this new family that she and her husband now have under a roof where, again, a couple weeks ago, y'all were just a couple. Yeah. And now you're a family. And that should be, I remember the joy that I felt when I became a dad. I mean, I had, my daughter, when she was born, honestly, it was one of the great moments of my life. And 2 years later, we defied odds. There has not been a boy born in our families, my wife's or mine, for forever. And we brought home a son, right? And so
Yeah.
the joy that we felt on those days and weeks and months around bringing home our kids and starting a family, that honestly, that's as big a reason as we got married as any, was to start a family.
Hmm.
You should be celebrating that, and we want to help you get there. So AZ, Joy, Jean, all the folks who have chimed in, thank you so much for supporting. Jesse, you're not alone. I promise.
you.
We will do everything we can to help you out.
Thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you.
You bet. Jesse, I'm going to let you go because I know you've got some baby care to deliver, but
Diapers to change.
but I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, for joining us tonight. And again, my head almost exploded when I heard about your experience a week or so ago. And I'm so grateful that you joined us and shared your story, because listen, we learned in the Maya trial that, at least in our area, Tampa Bay area, and the experience that the Kowalskis had during their stay at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital was, most of us didn't think that it was possible. If I had been told that, I would have thought somebody was exaggerating. But then you read the medical record, and you read the text messages, and you read the communications, and you heard the testimony, and you're like, oh my goodness. And I think all of us who follow the Child and Family Services type cases through LawTube, there are 3 cases in Georgia right now that they defy logic, but we also understand that, for better or for worse, your experience is not as unique as it should be, right? Yeah. This should almost never happen. And when a plausible explanation surfaces, the slate needs to be wiped clean, not just labeled as, unfounded, and follow you around until after your daughter graduates from college and grad school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because God forbid she breaks a bone on the playground. You think they're going to look at you different than they would if that wasn't in the records? So We're going to help you, Jesse.
Good. I need it.
Jesse, thank you so much. Go change that stinky diaper.
Right.
We're going to have you back as we follow up. Okay?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Enjoy your family time tonight, Jesse. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Wow. Folks, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. AZ, thank you so much for stepping up. Joy, thank you for your comments. Jean, you make me laugh. All of you, it's crazy. I had no idea. Personally, I had no idea that this lack of accountability was even possible. But it kind of goes back to the challenge that I got when we were discussing nationalized healthcare and Walmart and what have you. Is honestly, could you imagine if DCF if DCF's lack of accountability was the standard for accountability within a universal healthcare system? Again, it goes back to the metaphor that I used was, do you trust, when it has to be there overnight, do you trust FedEx or USPS, right? So I have a great letter carrier that services my house. He's amazing. He makes sure that nothing gets left out for porch pirates. And I love him to pieces. But honestly, I would go with FedEx, but that's me. So thank you so much for stepping up and offering to help Jesse. I know we as a community will pull that off. So thank you. So a couple of things I wanted to share with you in the balance of our time tonight. Number one, many of you who are still following the post-trial activities of the Take Care of Maya trial know that Greg Anderson filed a motion for sanctions via the Florida bar, but filed the motion notifying the judge, Carroll, of the violations, because in his interpretation of the statute and the rules, he was bound to notify the presiding judge. That got filed, I want to say, in early March. I will tell you that the Hopkins attorneys filed their response, and Sally, if you can pop that up, I'd be grateful. So I will tell you, I think it's a 4 pages start to finish. Ethan Shapiro is the one who signed the overall report. The bottom line is that their response is basically that the court should not respond and certainly should not grant Mr. Anderson's motion for sanctions, and should not involve itself in this problem. He, kind of says, we've already talked about some of the things. Some of the other things, really aren't a problem. But, it was, bottom line is that they're saying there's nothing to see here, move along. Right. So I did want to just make you aware this document. I think Gothic Brina will be posting it in the comments, a link to it, and it is in the Sarasota County Court docket. I will tell you one thing that kind of made me laugh is that as part of go back one page for me, Sally. In point 19, 18 and 19, they referenced some of the comments that Greg Anderson made while he was a guest on this program, talking about the Florida bar lacks the funding and personnel to prosecute the S-birds and random bad guys like defense counsel, and refuses to tell the bad guys that they're over the line. So the bottom line is that I guess we've made the big time advocates. Ethan Shapiro cited us and this program and this community as in support of his argument. So, hey, I guess we're internet famous now, right? So anyway, just wanted to make you aware that that they did file this. We will link it, and it's easy reading. It's only 4 pages. Quite candidly, there's just not that much to read. So just wanted to make you aware. So one of the members of the audience had, in the comments, asked for guidance that was then backed up on an email. And keep in mind, I have an email address, askcmodrjoe@gmail. If you have questions, I will try to answer anything I can. Now, keep in mind, I don't practice law, so there's no legal advice to be offered here. And I stopped practicing medicine 20 years ago when I had my injury. So I can't really respond to individual problems, but I will try to address questions that are of general interest. So I apologize. I can't remember who asked the question, but the question was, hey, what resources are out there to help us identify a good hospital, a good doctor, help us understand, how do we know when we have the right team supporting us, or how do we best identify who it is that we need to go to? Keep in mind, if you remember back, I want to say it was in January, We met Annie, the amazing 14 and 15-year-old who was told, I'm the doctor, I'm the surgeon, I've done the training, I'm telling you, you need this scoliosis surgery. She wasn't good with that and wanted a second opinion, and she went for a second opinion. And in that second opinion, she without her mother's knowledge, she spoke up and said, hey, no, let's take a step back. I'm not comfortable with this. I want you to talk with me, not at me. And let's talk about the options. Maybe there's something that's less invasive that will get the job done. And she ended up having a 1-hour conversation with the chief of surgery at a big, big, big academic medical center that specializes in orthopedic surgery. So, I mean, here's this 15-year-old kid going toe to toe with a well-recognized, well-regarded, internationally well-regarded surgeon, right? And she did it. On the drive home, mom said, Annie, where in the world where did that come from? And she said, well, mom, when I'm doing homework and you're listening to that YouTube show, I'm listening too. And everybody on there talks about advocating for yourself. So I advocated for myself. So how do we advocate for ourselves and find the right doctor, find the right hospital? Well, there's a couple of resources that I want to make you aware of. And Sally, as I go through, feel free to pop them up just for reference. So the first one is, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, is the federal agency that oversees the government's investment in healthcare and really oversees Medicare primarily and contributes to the management of Medicaid, which is a federal program. It's actually a federal and state co-shared program. So CMS does do ratings. Hospitals are graded up to 5 stars. Here's why it's a challenge to use the CMS 5 stars. First and foremost, the data that they rely on is at least 2 years old. So if you want to know where you should have gone in 2021-22, the CMS ratings are a good guide. It's good directionally because if a hospital is consistently getting 4 and 5 stars, they're probably still keeping up that high standard. Sally just put up the Leapfrog group. I think that Leapfrog is probably the first source that I would trust. Leapfrog is actually a consumer-driven group that was formed by companies that had a lot of employees in healthcare plans. And they were looking for, hey, how do we know? Let's look at data. How do we know that we're sending our employees to the best centers, the best doctors? So what they have done is they've come up with a Leapfrog group safety score. And twice a year, each hospital earns a grade from A to F, just like when we were in school, okay? And believe it or not, it's only about 10% of hospitals earn an A, but there are actually 15 hospitals listed in this article that have earned an A, all 15, since it started in 2012. So for the last 12 years, they have scored at the top of the class. So I will tell you that, again, there's only 15 of them. The Mayo Clinic Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, French Hospital in San Luis Obispo, and Kaiser Permanente Orange County, Anaheim in California. There's one in Colorado, Rose Medical Center. I happen to be friends with the chief medical officer there. Advent Health Daytona Beach is the only facility in Florida that has scored straight A's since 2012. There's 3 in Illinois. There's 1 in Massachusetts. There's 1 in Mississippi. Rex Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina is safe, safest of the safe. Virginia has 3, and 1 in Nova and 2 with Centara. And then Virginia Mason in Seattle also has straight A's. So this list is at least tells you that, hey, yeah, you can get straight A's. It's not easy. It is not easy to keep a hospital safe. And I will tell you that kind of the next story is very emblematic of how unexpected safety risks can be at times. And Sally, feel free to pop this up. This actually happened at an HCA hospital in Missouri, and it's this is so sad on so many levels. Missouri man is facing second-degree murder charges after police say he strangled his wife in her hospital bed on May the 4th. She was there to get a Newport for her dialysis, and she was found unresponsive in her room at 8:30 at night. But the last line is just so difficult. The defendant told police he killed the victim because he could not take care of her anymore, and he couldn't afford to pay her medical bills. And now he is facing second-degree murder charges. And the next morning he woke up knowing that he killed his wife, and he has to live with that for the rest of his life. And there's got to be some buyer's remorse in that. There's got to be major regrets in that. She was his life partner, and it probably seemed like an irresistible impulse, as Scott Richards would say. But again, going back to the conversation that we had about, why don't we have a better healthcare system? People should not feel that kind of pressure to afford bills. So if you ever do find yourself in a situation where you cannot afford a hospital bill, 2 people I want you to keep in mind. There are ombudsmen at nearly every hospital. There are people who are on the administrative staff who are there to help you through difficult situations. If nothing else, ask to speak to the chief financial officer, okay? I will tell you that at the hospital where I served first as CMO, we would accept, if someone made a good faith effort to pay, the biggest discount I can ever remember us granting was 87%. We took 13 cents on the dollar. 13 cents is better than 0 cents on the dollar. And we sure as hell would never want you to go to this extreme to get out of paying a bill or feeling like you were that helpless. So speak to an ombudsman or speak to the chief financial officer at your hospital if you're having if you know that you're not going to be able to afford this care. You need the care. You need to worry about the bill as a secondary. And I know that's easy to say, but there are avenues out. So this is a tragic story, and I wanted to share it. And listen, I know it was one of my company's hospitals. I'm sorry about that to my former employers. I'm sorry about that, but you gotta call balls and strikes where you find them, right? And this was a tragedy that should never have happened. So Leapfrog would be the first place I would look. Another source where a lot of people will look, and you see it on billboards all the time, is called Health Grades. Now, Leapfrog is primarily aimed at hospitals and ambulatory surgery centers and hospices, et cetera. Health Grades will present a grade on a hospital or an institution. It will also offer grades around physicians and practices and medical groups. However, while the grades are earned through data analytics and are reasonably reliable and fair. If you want to use that A grade and promote it, you have to pay health grades for that privilege. Okay, now you earned it, but they copyright it. So be aware that the presence of a health grades recognition is not to be dismissed, but the lack of a health grades recognition it doesn't mean that they didn't score highly. It means that they didn't want to shell out what can be a sizable amount of money to buy the rights to market that. So health grades has a good rubric, has a good analytical approach, statistical approach, but again, there's that financial component. The last one that I want to make you aware of is the Joint Commission. Now, anyone who followed the trial, particularly the last day that I was on the stand, you know what the Joint Commission is. That's the accrediting agency that has been around since the 70s, and they have the book that literally is about 3 or 4 inches thick of all of the standards. That's the one that got the cardiac program in trouble, or when the cardiac program got in trouble, the Joint Commission came in, issued the immediate jeopardy. The findings that supported the immediate jeopardy went far beyond just the cardiac surgery program. They were lack of governance. There was poor communication. There was literally right hand not talking to the left hand. And that creates holes in the safety net, right? And that was what they found. And it was, if you want to read it, go to the Tampa Bay Times archives, pull up the Heartbroken series by Beatty and McGrory. It's all there. The report is there. But the Joint Commission actually does a pretty good job for what it does. It, again, comes in and yes, Martha Ivy, the IJ that Greg never got, you are correct. But the Joint Commission comes in and assesses, are you meeting the standard, the expectation? So again, I'm hoping that this will actually show up. I don't know if it's going to work. Now that's the CMS. That's the star ratings. That's not helpful. Health grades. Here's Joint Commission. Let me see if you can see this. Yeah, here we go. Hopefully this will make it up on the screen. Why can't I get this to show up? Share. It's not showing up. Bottom line is that you can look at any hospital that you want to assess. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so St. Joe's Hospital is one of the 2 hospitals in the Tampa Bay area that I talked about. St. Joe's is the hospital. It's run by Baycare. They are the ones that just got the $50 million endowment from the Pagidipati family to build a new children's hospital. And this site will tell you that the hospital was accredited July 15th of last year. It will tell you that their maternal levels of care just earned or renewed its verification, its certification for maternity care. And then it will also identify the alternate sites. Now, staying on this same page, Let's take a look at Tampa General. Okay, so here's Tampa General Hospital. This is one of their satellite hospitals. Let's get to the big house. Here we go. Florida Health Sciences Center, DBA, Tampa General Hospital, 1 Tampa General Circle. So this is the big house. This is the 1,000-bed hospital, not too terribly far away from where I live. So it tells you that the hospital just 2 weeks ago completed its survey and earned its accreditation once again. So they should be accredited for 3 years. They have certifications in 3 joint replacements: hip, knee, and shoulder. All of those are current as of the beginning of this year. And I can tell you from personal knowledge that those were renewals, not first timers. They have advanced certification in ventricular assist device in their adult cardiac surgery program. They too have verification programs on maternal levels of care. And then this tab, if we open it, will show you all the other sites. So again, it's good to know if you're looking for maternity care. At least the Joint Commission is saying that Tampa General or St. Joe's both have really good programs. Let's look at Hopkins All Children. And I've got this isolated just to Florida hospitals. So you can see that it does have its accreditation effective March 12, 2022. It does not list any certifications or accreditations for other programs like Tampa General and St. Joe's did. Now, that may be a strategic choice that they just didn't request the surveys for it. That's not to say that the programs aren't good, that they don't do good work. It certainly doesn't say that there's not good people working there. All it's saying is that they didn't go through the process. So again, the Joint Commission, there's not one single source of truth here, because they all kind of look at the same healthcare, but from different perspectives. Okay. Again, I put most of my faith in the leapfrog scores because that's patient safety focused. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that will help you advocate for yourself and help you migrate out of whatever hospital is closest and most convenient to the hospital that actually can get you the best result. Okay. The situation in the hospital in Missouri where the husband killed his wife, who is tragic. But again, it speaks to why it is so difficult to run a hospital, to run it well. You're up against some big unexpecteds, the black swan kind of occurrences, and certainly a murder occurring in your hospital is a black swan. It's just not something that you really ever expect, anticipate, plan for. One of the other problems, and unfortunately this is way too common. Again, let me try to share this. And this does not do my heart good. Well, again, I can't find the tab. I will tell you that the article, the headline is California physician pleads guilty to $4.6 million fraud. And here, let me show it to you now. A 77-year-old Orange County physician pleaded guilty to 1 count of healthcare fraud, carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. So the likelihood is that Dr. Isaguirre will die in prison. And because he, from December of 13 through January of 2020, he and 2 employees submitted more than $4.6 million to a Medi-Cal program for family planning services that were never provided. And then there's kickbacks and everything else. It's just a, again, it's a heartbreaking story, because, again, why is it so hard for some people to do the right thing? And clearly he knew, he and his 2 employees, they knew that what they were doing was not right, and they did it anyway. And again, how do you, if you're running a practice, if you're running a hospital, how do you plan for behavior that is so far out of what would be considered reasonable and normal for you, right? And this goes back, if you remember when Scott Richards was on the program, and he talked about the 2 standard deviation rule, right? Whatever is the most despicable thing you can imagine, someone who truly doesn't have that true north, like most of us, all of us do, we can't think of evil and wicked the way that somebody who is evil and wicked can think. Okay? So whatever the worst is that you can come up with, someone who has that evil and wicked brain, heart, can take it at least 2 standard deviations beyond that. That's what Dr. Ezagiri and his 2 employees, that's where they are. They're out there with the 2 standard deviations. But again, it's emblematic of why running hospitals and why is difficult, and why healthcare is so messed up. Criminal med, absolutely. Just do the right thing for the patient always, no matter what. Use your gut, use your heart, right? Do the right thing even when nobody's watching. What would you want someone in a white coat to do if you were the patient, right? Golden rule, right? So, okay, last thing that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, let me move away from that. And 10 things. It was just up here. Let's try this again. 10 things to know. I had mentioned that United Healthcare owns a bank, and it's called the Optum Bank. So right after we had that discussion, this article came out, and 10 things to know about Optum's bank. Launched in 2003, changed its name to Optum in 2008, blah, blah, blah. It's in Utah. Look at where the CEO came from. She previously was chief financial officer at global technology company Stripe. Stripe is the one that, you pay electronically. You never, it's a phenomenally huge remote payment business. She was also chief financial officer at General Motors. Oh my gosh. And now she's running this bank, right? It offers the usual stuff. HSAs, yeah, that makes sense. Flexible spending accounts, yeah, that makes sense. It also offers wealth management accounts for some beneficiaries of life insurance products. Not sure how that fits in. Electronic payment processing between payers and providers. So they are the ones who manage the payments. When I was in practice and I had a United Healthcare patient and I billed for that delivery or that hysterectomy, and United would send that money to my account, Optum Bank is navigating that financial rabbit hole and taking a tiny piece off of every single one of those transactions, right? Optum Bank is FDIC insured. It has assets totaling $15 billion. Now, full disclosure, the largest bank, Chase Bank, has $3.4 trillion. The 10th largest, TD Bank, has $366 billion. So I can't say that, 15 billion is gigantic, but it's 15 billion. That's 15,000 million, right? That's a lot of dough, right? HSA accounted for almost 99% of all total deposits. Here's the interesting thing, though. The bank recorded the bank recorded almost $600 million in interest income. So off of that $15 billion, they, through their investments, earned interest back of $600 million. And look at how much it paid out to the account holders, $12 million. Now, I'm pretty good at math, but that tells you that they took in $600 million and they paid out almost none, right? So they netted about $590 million here. Let's be generous and say they netted $580 million. It processes payment claims on behalf of affiliates and third parties to 434,000 providers, doctors, practices, systems. And Optum Bank customers can shop for health savings account, flexible savings account eligible products. So they have a retail element, they have a financing element, they have a processing element. They earned $600 million in interest. So the bottom line is that this is your insurance company. They're also the largest employer of physicians in the country, right? But this is great diversification. If I am a board member at United, boy, I'm impressed. I'm happy with this. This is a well-run, vertically integrated business. But is that where you want your insurance company focusing, or do you want them making decisions about how are we going to take the best care of our patients? I don't know the answer. There are ways that owning the bank helps better than giving the money to somebody else, Bank of America, Chase, JP Morgan, whatever. But, I think of health insurance as a contract between a patient who needs coverage and a company that can help provide it. I don't know. Again, it's just one more element of why healthcare is difficult, and the healthcare system is difficult to manage and difficult to improve. Again, go back to where we were when we were talking about Walmart failing, Virgin, Sir Richard Branson failing, Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and Jamie Dimon as Haven failing. And why did they fail? Are there organizations, are there players in the game who stand too much to lose if healthcare is reformed? I don't know it well enough to have a well-informed opinion about it. But as somebody said earlier, trust your gut, and my gut smells something here, right? So just a thought. Anyway, hey, listen, I'm going to jump. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you so much for offering Jessie your love, your support, your help. AZ, thank you so much for everything that you've done to help her already. I will keep in touch with you and with Jessie, and I promise this group I will bring Jessie back, hopefully to tell the happy ending part of her story. And who knows, maybe we'll get to meet her daughter too. So guys, I love you. You're an amazing group. I'm so glad I get to be a part of you. You're really, really good at taking care of others. But please remember, always, always, always take care of yourself so that we can be taking care of others. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Take care.
I will tell you without hesitation, I will tell you that I did not have this anywhere in my 5-year plan, Mr. Anderson.
That much I believe. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Make sure that you take care of yourself so that we can be taking care of others. I'll look forward to seeing you in the coming days. Again, Kurt, Jules, thank you so much for making this a very dynamic conversation today. I'm grateful for your help.
Oh, kill me now. Please tell me this guy's doing some fraud and there's going to be like an insurance investigator or something.
So, Fred, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experience, and can't wait to bring you back, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it. You won't have to try hard. This was a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody.
You hear that? I get the rest of the day off from doctor's orders. That's what I'm hearing.
I will write that prescription anytime for you, sir. And, this will not be our last conversation, especially if you can get me Samantha Lawrence on the show.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll see you before the hearing next week. But thank you for the honor of being your first guest, Joe. And
you bet.
All the kind words. Appreciate it.
Please, let's make sure that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. Thank you so much.